Welcome everyone to today's podcast. My name is Paul. I am in Peterhead in Scotland. I'm really pleased to have been joined today by Rob.
Hi guys, I'm Rob. I'm from Aylesbury.
So I'm really pleased. Rob's going to be sharing his experience, strength and hope with us today. I just want to let everyone know, if you've just landed on this video on YouTube, that we've got about 16 or 17 other videos. There's 3 videos on sponsorship. What is sponsorship? Am I ready to become a sponsor? And how do I sponsor? There's also a video on the spiritual malady. There's one on the entire psychic change. There's an introduction to CA Steps Program Fellowship and more. So please feel free to check those out and distribute them. We're not spokespeople for Cocaine Anonymous. We're simply members carrying a message of hope, faith and courage. So if you're listening to this message and you're struggling with drug addiction, please come along to a meeting, get yourself some literature, get into the steps and get yourself a sponsor. Check out the other videos, reach out to us in the conversation below the video by all means. If you'd like to add anything to what's said today, please feel free to do so. So without further ado, I'm really pleased that Rob's come along today, and I'm just going to hand the floor over to you, Rob.
Thank you very much, Paul. Hi guys. I hope I find you all well. My name's Rob. I'm a recovered cocaine addict. Basically, I live in the Aylesbury area, and I'll try and paint a little picture for you of sort of my life and how addiction sort of crept its way up on me, and what I've done to beat it, really. So I was very lucky. I was brought up in a good family, a good household. We were never short of money. We're privileged, really. My dad had a very successful business, but at the same time he was an alcoholic. I would say a functioning alcoholic, because he could run a business all day. But, when it came to, coming home and chucking the suit off, unfortunately, he drank a bit too much every night. And, it made for problems, as you can imagine. There were arguments and a few fights here and there. And it wasn't the best situation to grow up in. I held quite a resentment against my dad for the way that he treated my mum and stuff. But, otherwise, it was, a pretty good childhood, and from about the age of, I suppose, 15, 16, last year of school, friends of mine started smoking, a bit of hash, bit of weed. And I sort of got dragged in, peers and stuff, and a bit of peer pressure. And, I started to smoke with them, and, things sort of, graduated as I went through, my drug use. And, I after that, I found things like things like LSD and ecstasy and amphetamine. And, I grew up at the point where the rave scene was coming in a major way, and drugs and music just went hand in hand. It was that sort of, that first summer of love. Everybody loved up on ecstasy and raving, free parties, disappearing for 3 days on end in a quarry somewhere in Wales, at a free party. But it was fun. It was fun. I can't lie and say, that I didn't enjoy, my early years of drug using. It was good fun, and everybody was doing it, and it was just, one massive party. But the thing was, I hadn't got an addiction at that point, because I could pick up and put down drugs quite easily. You know, I could party the whole weekend away, and then Sunday night I would stop. I'd work all week, you know, held down a good job. And then Friday night it all started again, you know, and I had no issues like with that midweek using. But as I went through the years, and now I've looked back at it, I can see that there was definitely an addictive personality starting from quite an early age. First of all, it was really gambling, fruit machines and stuff in the pub. And then it obviously, you know, bit of drinking, not really a heavy drinker because my dad was an alcoholic. I didn't really like alcohol, but I did find that alcohol was a massive trigger to me wanting to then use drugs. And yeah, so sort of moving on a few years, I got mixed up with, I sort of say a gang, sort of was and wasn't a gang, you know, but it was, you know, a group of lads that were up to no good. You know, we were earning money from illegal, you know, stuff. And obviously, you know, there was a massive drug scene. So, you know, selling, you know, pills here and there, and then, you know, sort of low level crime. But, you know, as I got a bit of a reputation for myself within, you know, these lads, you know, the older lads showed interest in sort of taking me under their wing. And, you know, it ended up that I did my first prison sentence for a crime around about the age of 20. That took me through till I was sort of 21 and a half, nearly 22. And to be honest, for the next sort of 20, yeah, about 20 years, I just moved in circles, you know, the criminal fraternity, you know, doing stupid stuff. And it got bigger and bigger and bigger as I went through. You know, I like my drug use, you know, it sort of upgraded. And you know, I used to get a bit of a thrill out of it. It was a bit of an adrenaline rush doing all this stuff, you know, but stupid thinking, you know, really stupid thinking, high, you know, drunk, thinking I was invincible, thinking I was Superman. You know, it ended up that, you know, I was stabbed a couple of times. You know, I've been absolutely beaten the hell out of. You know, got into some really, really sticky situations. So yeah, you know, a few sentences, time behind the door, and you know, I was turning into a, you know, you know, a mature man, you know, and I was still doing this stupid stuff, and you know, the cocaine and stuff had got worse and worse, the usage, you know, and fast forwarding right on to literally like 2-3 years ago, I was absolutely abusing coke, or I'd say actually it was abusing me. It had become my master, and you know, I just couldn't stop. I really couldn't stop, and everything I tried to do, you know, I tried to go for, you know, speak to a psychiatrist and CBT, and you know, lots and lots of different programs and things, but just nothing worked. You know, nothing worked. Nothing could stop this addiction. And it got to the point where I was doing sort of 2-3 grams a day. I was going to bed with one, you know, a line, and waking up with a line. You know, I didn't need Weetabix. That was my, you know, that was my starter for the day. And I wasn't working because of my criminal background. You know, I struggled to find work. So I was, you know, doing more and more criminal behavior to fund my habit, you know, and things were spiraling out of control pretty quickly, you know, and I sort of kept saying to myself, oh, it's all right, you know, I can give it up tomorrow, and you know, and I'll stop all this. And you know, by this time I'm married, I've got 2 children, you know, and I just needed to grow up, you know. I was like a 5-year-old petulant child, you know, in an adult's body. If you told me not to do something, I went and did the opposite, and it got to last year when COVID came, and basically I got stopped by the police in possession of cocaine, and I got arrested, and I was looking at potentially sort of 3 to 4 years inside for possession with intent to supply. It was my own personal, but it was bagged up in different things, and it pretty well looked like I didn't have a leg to stand on. And I found that really, really hard to deal with. They didn't charge me. It took like 9 months for them to actually come back and charge me, and I struggled. And plus, we had COVID here, lockdown. My mental health was absolutely all over the place because I was using, but I was locked in, and I just went a bit loopy, and I ended up on a motorway bridge, ready to kill myself. And because I literally found that I was down this rabbit hole and I had no way out. I had no light at the end of the tunnel. I just thought, this is it. I'm an addict for life. Like, if the coke doesn't kill me, I'm going to kill myself. And by some miracle, I was caught. But that's a whole nother story. But I was caught trying to kill myself, and basically got some help with mental health. And literally like a few days after, I got on good old Google, and I put in cocaine addict, and C.A came up, C.A UK. And I rang the helpline, and they were really lovely, and they put me in touch with somebody in my local area who was running a meeting. And the meeting, this was on a Tuesday, and the meeting was on a Thursday, and off I went on that Thursday to the first meeting. I was petrified, absolutely petrified, to walk into this room. And it was funny. It was very funny, because I walked in, and obviously a bit paranoid and, scared. And I walked in, and I thought I had sort of gone to the wrong place, because it was like a cross between Crime Watch and Grindr. There were big, burly, tattooed blokes who looked like they would rob you, but they're all hugging each other and telling each other how much they love each other, and and brother this and brother that. And I honestly, I thought I'd turned up to the wrong meeting. But I was told to sit down, take the cotton wool out of my ears, put it in my mouth. In other words, shut up and listen, So I sat down, and I listened to a guy share. He was from Oxford, and he pretty well told my story. Criminal background, career criminal, drugs, all this stuff. And then he announced that he was 5 years clean and sober. And I was absolutely gobsmacked. I was thinking, I'm looking at him, and he looks calm and at peace, and, just happy, content. And, I thought, there's no way I can have this. I want it, but there's no way I can have this. And I stayed after the meeting, and I spoke to him, and he ended up being my sponsor. And he was happy. He was genuinely happy with life, content. And he was 5 years clean, and it was just unbelievable. And, we met the next week, and started to go through the steps and read the big book. And, as soon as God was mentioned, I was petrified, because and I felt a bit of a hypocrite, because the only time that I prayed to God was in a courtroom, a police cell, and I'm hoping I can get off a charge. And he said, it's a spiritual program, not a religious one. Obviously, God is involved in this, or a power greater than you, a higher power. It can be God, it could be Mother Nature, whatever you want to pick, And, I was a bit of a born again atheist. I didn't really believe, So I struggled at the start. I struggled to hand my will over, to something that I wasn't quite sure of. And he said to me, look, think about when you were first offered that first line of Coke. Did you question it? Did you question, did I sit there and say to the guy handing me the plate, what's the chemical buildup of this? Is it going to have long-term effects when I'm older? Am I going to get addicted to it? I didn't ask any of those. I just snorted it. I trusted this guy. He said, it's really good. You'll like it. So, my sponsor said to me, well, take the same leap of faith. What have you got to lose? He said, you pretty well lost everything already. You haven't got much more to lose apart from your life if you go back out there, because this disease is serious. It kills people, So I took a leap of faith and I handed my will over. So, I did 1, 2, and 3. So, I can't, he can, my higher power. I'll let him, and basically I'll turn my will over and ask God, as I choose to call him now, God, to, do that for me, do my thinking for me, because my thinking wants me dead. It wants me so addicted to cocaine, I'll kill myself. So, 1, 2, and 3 were pretty easy once I sort of got a grip of it all and, and understood it. And then we came to step 4. And there's this massive misconception around step 4, that it's, evil and, that it's going to tear your soul away from you or something. It is such a load of cock and bull, and so many people are frightened of it when they haven't even got there yet. The reason why I say that is, yes, step 4 is hard. You've got to get honest, vulnerable, humble. You've got to get all that baggage that you're dragging around with you, all the resentments, harms that you've done, all these things, and you can get rid of them. It's as simple as like pretty well writing it on a chalkboard, and then step 5, you're given the chalkboard rubber and you rub it off in the presence of your sponsor and God, and you ask God to take that away from you. And I did it, and it was a beautiful experience, really beautiful experience, because I felt like a massive weight was taken, lifted off my shoulders. And after my step 5, between 5 and 6, I had, some people call it a spiritual experience. I call it like an internal snap, where I suddenly understood the book, the big book that we talk about. It's our Bible. It's the Alcoholics Anonymous book that C.A. runs from as well. And I suddenly understood it. It sort of lit up for me. And my connection with my higher power, who I choose to call God, was like the super fast broadband was switched on. And I felt like, not like my prayers were being answered, like somebody was coming straight back to me and saying something, but I was just getting little, I call them God shots, just little messages, little signs that things were going all right. Things were good. So when I went on to do my 6 and 7, which is your character defects, I had literally the full house. I had nearly every single character defect. I was embarrassed. And, because I wasn't a nice person. I was pretty evil, selfish, egotistical, just not a nice guy, violent and stuff. And, I did that with my sponsor again, in the eyes of God. We asked God to be present, and they were lifted from me, and I just noticed that I wasn't getting angry anymore. I didn't want to punch everybody that got on my nerves. I wasn't being spiteful, nasty, all these things, because I was probably narcissistic as well, in addiction. And I just I started being a lot nicer, you know, and, you know, again, that's beautiful. It's amazing. You know, it really is amazing. You know, I never believed, I never thought it could happen, but it did, you know. And then, you know, the rest of the steps, obviously there's step 8, which is your amends from step 5, which is where you go and actually make amends to the people that you've harmed or you have resentments against. But you've worked out whilst you're doing these steps what your part is to play in it. And majority of the time, I had a massive part to play in it. And the reason why I had a resentment was probably because of me. Um, so, you know, I started making my amends, and 9, 10, and 11 are basically, 10 and 11 are your prayer and meditation, and your nightly inventory. So where you literally write down all of the stuff that's happened that day. It's 10 questions. It's really, really easy. And you send that to your sponsor. And you can deal with any resentments that you've gathered during the day, or if you need to make an apology to somebody straight away, or if you're holding a secret. You know, it's just basic stuff, really basic stuff. But it helps you put your head on the pillow feeling, you know, content and at peace, you know. And 11, prayer and meditation. When I first started, I really struggled with prayer and meditation. My sponsor said to me that there's a really easy way to break down the prayer bit. He said, you wear slippers when you're at home. And I said, yeah. He said, right, when you go to bed, kick them right underneath the bed. And I said, why on earth am I going to do that? I've got to get on my hands and knees to get them out in the morning. He goes, exactly. Put your hands together and say a little prayer whilst you're down there. And that was it. You know, he had broken the fact I couldn't pray with a very simple task. So I started to do it. You know, if somebody makes it that easy for me, I'll start to do it. Meditation, I use the step 11 St. Francis prayer, which is to a meditation on YouTube. Absolutely brilliant. It's worked for me all the way through. And, you know, I've given it to many other people, as sponsees, and it's worked for them too, you know. And then the magical step 12. I couldn't wait to hear my sponsor say, well done, mate. You've just done your 12 steps. Now go out and give it back to someone else. And I couldn't wait, because by that point, I had love, tolerance, kindness, you know, all the good traits. And I really, really wanted to help someone else, you know, beat their addiction. And I've been blessed, you know, I'm absolutely blessed. I've had quite a few sponsees now, you know, they're doing well. You know, a couple didn't get it, unfortunately, and went back out there, you know, and I hope and pray every day that they'll come back, you know, and they've hit their bottom and they want to come and do it. But taking a sponsee through the steps is the most satisfying. Do you know what? I would even say it's the best buzz I've ever had. It's better than any drug I've ever taken, because it's from your heart, you know. And if you genuinely care about somebody getting well, you know, I wouldn't wish addiction on my worst enemy. You know, it is horrible. It's evil. You know, you're stuck in that malady and irritable, restless, and discontent. In other words, bored, grateful, ungrateful, and peed off, you know. And I wouldn't wish that on anyone. And, you know, it is a beautiful experience taking someone through. It's like watching your kids take their first steps or say their first words. When you see somebody, a drug addict, wake up and smell the coffee, suddenly get it, that sparkle in their eye comes back. And, you know, that is truly amazing. And, you know, I'm 6 months and just over 2 weeks clean. I couldn't get an hour. So that is an absolute miracle in itself. And, you know, the whole God thing and praying and all the rest of it, you know, I am never going to sing Kumbaya. I'm not going to wear sandals, and I haven't ordered a tambourine off Amazon yet. But I can believe, I don't have to be a happy clapper, to believe. I just believe, and I know that there is somebody doing what I cannot do for myself, which is my thinking and my will. So, don't get hung up on it. If the whole God thing scares you, because this program is more spiritual than religious, I promise you. So yeah, I've had a complete turnaround. Kind, loving, and tolerance. I do lots of service within meetings, doing main shares. I do service with C.A. UK PI, which is public information. I design flyers and things to make other addicts aware, of the program. And I'm just starting to do HI, which is hospitals and institutions, because I want to go into prisons and stuff and connect with the prisoners, and just giving back. It's just giving back is a beautiful thing. And, if you're starting on this journey, just have that bit of hope, faith, and courage. It's why it's on the key rings. It's why it's on all of our literature. You just have to use that, have the courage to start the program, have some faith that a higher power can save your backside, and just get on with it. Get yourself in the book, get yourself a sponsor, and get on with those beautiful steps, and you will not regret it. I promise you. And I think, Paul, that is probably my life story, mate.
Do you know what? That was brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Thank you.
I love listening to you, Rob. It's always real talk. And thank you so much. Thank you.
My pleasure.
So,
my pleasure.
Just a quick, what should I call it, interlude. Please come along to a Cocaine Anonymous meeting. Please get yourself some literature. On screen is a book called Alcoholics Anonymous. It's been around for 80 years. It's generally accepted to be the daddy of all recovery books. It's a really, really good book. It's about £14 off eBay or Amazon. You can actually get it for £10 delivered from a site that I can't precisely remember the name of, but I think it's alcoholics-anonymous.org.uk. Put that into Google. Get yourself some literature. Get yourself a sponsor, get into the steps. There's a solution here. Now, I just want to say this book that's on screen, as I've said, is called Alcoholics Anonymous. We often call it the big book. I've got a chapter called More About Alcoholism on there. And you might be watching this video and saying to yourself, but I'm not an alcoholic, I'm an addict, or I'm using lots of cocaine, or lots of weed, or lots of amphetamine, or lots of Valium. The substance doesn't particularly matter. A drug is a drug is a drug. Addiction is alcoholism, and alcoholism is addiction. And I remember, and I relate with everything you've said, really, Rob. There's very little you said I didn't relate with, and I'm always inspired when I hear you, because it's just a power of example, and it's so crystal clear, everything you share. And on the subject of cannabis, I think you said cannabis was your introductor into the world of drugs. Was that right?
Yeah.
Well,
Smoking a split at school or whatever. Yeah.
Well, I tasted alcohol first, but it was cannabis that became regular and problematic. In my mid-teens.
Yeah.
So I totally relate with that. I can't relate much with jail. I've had a few breaches of the peace in my time. In fact, I had about 5. Small enough. So I can relate a little bit. A few weeks on remand, but the feelings around getting into active addiction. You mentioned about how your behavior wasn't that of a mature man, and I thought that was really interesting, and that's something we all have to work on a daily basis, of course. There was so much identification in what you shared, but I just want to say in general terms to anyone that's tuning in, welcome. Come along to Cocaine Anonymous meetings. So, how did you first hear about Cocaine Anonymous, Rob, and what keeps you coming back?
Well, basically that absolute desperation after, my attempted suicide, I got onto good old Google. You can find most things, in a browser. And I just stuck in, cocaine addict, and C.A. came up for the UK's hits. And I clicked on their website. They've got a helpline on there, which is a manned helpline. You give them a call. They talk through a few questions with you, basically, and then they will point you in the direction of a 12-stepped C.A. member, and usually they'll take your number and that member will call you and then suggest a few local meetings and stuff for you to go to. So that's how I sort of got introduced to it. And then what keeps me coming back is the unity, the fellowship, I've made some really, really good, solid mates, through recovery, and that is purely because, we might not know each other's stories, but we know exactly where we've been and the pain that we've gone through of addiction, that malady that we speak about, that sort of terrible sort of depression and feeling of no hope, and we talk about irritable, restless, and discontent, which is basically bored, peed off, and ungrateful. We're, that's just how we are as addicts. We want everything someone else has got,
Yeah. And Rob, would you say you see a broad variety of folks in attendance at meetings, face-to-face and online? What I mean by that is background, age, and substance addiction.
Oh, totally. It's sometimes it's crazy. You can walk into a meeting, a face-to-face meeting, and you will literally have people there of all, ethnic backgrounds, financial backgrounds. This addiction does not discriminate. It will, it will try and destroy anyone's life that gets into it. But it could be, it could be the lollipop lady, it could be the accountant, it could be the estate agent, the the cook at school. It could be anybody. Don't just think because it's Cocaine Anonymous, it's a load of young wide boys and party girls.
Yeah.
It touches everybody, and
a broad church, a wide variety.
Yeah, and because Cocaine Anonymous is any mind-altering substance, we do not push away an alcoholic. We do not push away a drug addict. It doesn't matter what their poison is.
That's right.
We embrace everybody the same. An addict is an addict is an addict,
Absolutely. So, the next question you kind of touched on, Rob, and there'll be an upcoming podcast on this very subject, but we are a spiritual, not religious program. And, I'm going to jump in with a few thoughts of my own, Rob, before I get you. I know you've already referred to this, and, what that means to me is we're not Muslim, we're not Baptist, we're not Hindu, we're not the Moonies.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the big book declares clearly there's a creator. But however anyone can recover whatever they believe, however knowledgeable or however deluded they are, anyone can recover in Cocaine Anonymous and have long-term sobriety, one day at a time. We have a solution. There is a way out, but people do struggle with the word God. So in a nutshell, how do you see that, and what can we say to such persons, Rob?
Well, it's a power greater than you of your own understanding. I've heard of people, I would say, I don't know, maybe 60-70% of people choose God. There are others that choose Mother Nature. just something that is greater than them in power. Like Mother Nature makes the sun go up and down, and the tides rise. And can you do that? No, you can't. So that's a greater power than you. It's of your own understanding and your choosing. I've worked and been in recovery with Sikh, Muslim, Christian, um, Catholic, all sorts of different creeds and religions. And, we just all have the same belief that as long as it's a power greater than you doing your will and your thinking, you're going to get better.
Absolutely. And I think the beautiful thing about 12-step recovery is there's nothing to sign. It's completely free, start to finish. There's nothing to sign.
No membership fees
to make to anyone. There's nothing like that. It's completely altruistic. Everyone's welcome. You never have to come back again. The doors are open. You can come late, leave early, go out and come back again. The meetings will still be there. The lights will still be on. And we don't want to enter into any controversy. Now, this brings me to my next question, Rob, because we're not a theological society. There's plenty of places. If you want to know about deity, the creator, or your lack of belief in a creator, there's plenty of places and books you can go to and read about those topics. So, as you know, Rob, what we are about in 12-step recovery is alcoholism or addiction, which for me is exactly the same thing. And I just want to offer a bit of help to anyone that struggles. I was in a meeting yesterday and a man said that he struggled with this issue when he read the big book. He's so alcoholic. And he said, well, I'm not an alcoholic. And he's so alcoholism. He said, well, I'm just not an alcoholic. So, alcoholism is addiction, right? An alcoholic and a heroin addict and a cocaine addict, their minds, their health, and their relationships are virtually identical in full expression.
Totally
when
agree.
you told me, Rob, you went to sleep with a line of coke, woke up with a line of coke, I used to go to sleep with a bag of smack and wake up with a bag of smack.
Yeah.
Right? Alcoholics go to sleep with alcohol and they wake up with alcohol. And all three persons have it, if they can, they have it near their bed of a night. It's never far away, is it?
No.
And where it is.
And it's a sheer panic as well if you think you're going to run out. And
now, the point I want.
Go on. Sorry, Paul.
It's all right. Go on, Rob. I'll let you finish. Go on.
Oh, well, no, I was just about to say, it's that, it's that if you can stop whatever your poison is, if you can stop, can you stay stopped? And once you start, can you stop?
Precisely.
So if you answer the right way on both of those, then you are a true alcoholic or an addict.
Absolutely. So alcoholism and addiction are exactly the same. The substance doesn't matter. It's an obsession of the mind and a compulsion of the body. Most of us, when we read this wonderful book, Alcoholics Anonymous, which we call the big book, when we see alcohol, we substitute it for the word drugs, many of us in C.A. When we see alcoholism, we think of addiction.
Addiction, yeah.
When we see alcoholic, we think of addict. And that is quite a very simple, it's something you get used to, and so that's how we work exceptionally well from the big book and find lasting recovery, So alcoholism, obsession of the mind, compulsion of the body, the inability to stop using regardless of the consequences. Oh, no, I know what I'll do. I'll just sweep that under the carpet. Oh, no, I'll handle this. And we often do this subconsciously, Rob. We do a series of equations in our subconscious. No, that'll be all right. Oh, I know how I'll handle the wife. And, oh, my boss. Oh, I know I can do this. I can do that. Oh, well, make sure I don't get captured picking up this stash. Oh, I do this. I do that. And no matter what the consequences, mind, body, finances, marriage, relationships, career, no matter what, we carry on using no matter what. And I remember Silkworth, the two men that God used to create 12-step recovery back in the 30s, the Dr. Silkworth and Bill Wilson. And Silkworth came to see Bill and his wife Lois. And Lois said, I can't understand what's wrong with him. You know, he's very good in other areas of life. And he said he's got an obsession of the mind that overrides all other things.
Mm.
And that's what it is, Rob. We carried on using, mate, no matter what. And today we stay clean no matter what. Today we have a commitment to abstinence in God's power and grace. We are responsible for our recovery. You know, I'm clean and sober today by grace. You know, the things I do and the things I don't do, the places I go, the places I don't go. You know, from conversations just like this, Rob, which millions of recovering addicts are having around the world every day. You know, and a program of action. As a part of the program of action, Rob, I go along to meetings, but the meetings aren't the program. Right?
No, and they're not enough to keep you clean and sober either.
That's right. That's right. And the fellowship's not the program, but meetings and the fellowship are part of my program.
Yeah.
The program is what I have when I'm alone. Right. We can, you know, I'm not suggesting you or I, Rob, but we can all talk a good talk. Right. It's what we do. If we were silent movies, right, it's what we do on a day-to-day basis that keeps us clean and sober and in the solution, not necessarily what we say. And that's why the chapter in this wonderful book is called Into Action. It's not into talking or into feeling or into thinking. It's into action. So I've got a question for you. How would you define alcoholism / addiction?
Well, for me, it's the inability when I put that first one in me to be able to stop afterwards. You know, there is no way on earth I can, you know, get a bag of Coke and have one line and then pop the packet away in the drawer for next week. There is just no way on earth. That packet will be finished as quick as I can do it. And before I've even finished that packet, I'm thinking about the next one, you know. And the crazy thing about it is the majority of the time that when we pick up or buy a bottle or whatever we're doing it when we're actually sober and clean and compos mentis, you know. We're not high, we're not drunk, we're with it, you know, and that is the lunacy, that we still make that poor decision, knowing that, you know, because we have a belief that and it is lunacy in the dictionary. We have a belief that the next time it's going to be different, you know, like you put your hand, they have an example, you know, in the book of, you know, putting your hand in the fire. You know, what do you think's going to happen? You're going to get your hand burnt, you know. And the next time, as an addict, I think, well, maybe I'm not going to get my hand burnt this time, so I'll try it again and let's see if it's any better. It's never any better. It just gets worse, you know. And you know, that's this mental obsession, and also the lie, you know, the lie that we believe, you know, on a daily basis, that it's going to be different next time. You know, I'm not going to cause an absolute nightmare, get arrested, you know, say things to my wife that I can never take back, you know, and it's unforgivable, you know, and it's madness, absolute madness, you know. But unfortunately, that's what we suffer with. We just learn from the big book, and we learn from the steps on how to deal with that and how to address it. Pause when agitated. You know, there's a good old saying that, you know, if you keep putting yourself in the same situation, it's like if you sit in the barber's chair for long enough, eventually you're going to get your hair cut. You know, you will, you know, potentially do drugs or drink again if you keep putting yourself in those bad situations, you know. So I hope that answers the question, Paul.
Absolutely. Now, many of us become convinced over a period of time after listening at meetings and learning and changing our perspectives, Rob, that we've got a threefold problem going on. Well, we did have, and to some extent we still do. And it's physical, mental, and spiritual, not necessarily in that order. Many of us believe that it's disconnection from God, from a higher power, that's the root cause of the issue, which results in wrong thinking, regular and often, which results in wrong behavior, wrong lifestyle, which takes many addicts to death. Indeed, while we're doing this podcast, they reckon every 20, 25 seconds, a drug addict, included an alcoholic is a drug addict somewhere dies around the world. So that's like 3 or 4 every minute. So if we do an hour podcast, that's like over around 200 during this 1 hour podcast, Rob. Alcoholic addict will actually die, right?
Shocking.
So what the things we're talking about in this podcast are very, very important things, and the solution is very, very important, and step work is very, very important. The literature, the meetings, sponsorship. You and I have known people that have died of addiction.
Too many people,
even relatively recently. So but after a period of time of listening in meetings to people that have experience around the 12 steps, that have a solution, that know the truth about addiction and recovery, that are, as we like to say, armed with the facts. And I like that expression because it infers we're in a battle, and we are in a battle. Every human being every day is in a battle of the mind, right?
Totally.
To maintain their mental state, and I'm convinced that an alcoholic addict is suffering from a threefold problem. A spiritual problem that results in wrong thinking, that results in wrong behavior, wrong lifestyle, that leads to sickness, sanitariums, institutions, and death. So I was going to ask you to share your thoughts on that, Rob.
I mean, I believe as well, that you've got the physical allergy, the mental, and the spiritual. The physical allergy is the actual drinking or using. The mental is the phenomenon of craving. So, when you're literally, I call it itching, like itching for the next line, and where you're going to get it. And then you've got the spiritual side, which is, being irritable, restless, and discontent, ungrateful for the things that you've got in life, always wanting, what someone else has got, being restless. You just can't sort of be in your own company and do nothing. You just can't sit comfortably, and irritable, being sort of, anger, and, being easily annoyed, and, and then, there's the solution side of it, which again is like threefold, because you've got the body, the spirit, and the mind, which is unity, service, and recovery. So, you'll hear people say, like, stay within the triangle, stay in the triangle. Well, when you start the steps and you start to do the book with a sponsor, you'll draw a diagram which will basically give you an idea of what the triangle means. And it's meetings and unity, so between you and your fellows, service, so doing service like we are today, or could be picking up the cigarette butts, making the tea and coffee at a meeting. If it's online, it could be a greeter, could be hosting, it could be all sorts. But it's self-sacrifice. You're sacrificing your time. You're not getting paid for it. You're doing it because you want to do it, and it's that selflessness that, instead of selfishness. And then you've got the recovery side, which is practicing the 12 steps daily. And it's a really simple program for complicated people. And as addicts and alcoholics, we are complicated. Our minds are complicated, and we try to overcomplicate everything.
Absolutely.
you make, just whatever work you put in, you get the reward out of this program. There's a little bit of work, and about 15 minutes a day of stuff to do. It's nothing to be peaceful and happy and not to have that ringing in your ears, that tinnitus that I used to sort of have, which was just deafening at times, telling me to go and use. And you can have peace and happiness, you can be clean and serene, as they say,
Absolutely. And I was just thinking as you was talking there, that brings me perfectly on to the next point I wanted to make. What do we as recovering addicts have to do on a daily basis? I think someone could manage with a quarter of an hour a day, but I wouldn't advise it. I would say, an hour or two a day would be, without wanting to set up any rules or regulations or time limits, would be more conducive. If someone's fresh into recovery, they've just got clean, they're out the madness, they've got lots of consequences, their mind's all over the show, they've got a lot going on, I would suggest a meeting a day every day. I would suggest always introducing yourself in a meeting every day.
Oh, obviously, yeah. No, I wasn't talking about the meeting side of things.
All right, I'm not.
It's sort of.
Just let me finish. Let me finish.
Oh, sorry.
So I would suggest getting along. Just for any listeners that have just come onto this video on YouTube, I would suggest getting along to a meeting, and there is hundreds of Zoom meetings every week, and you're welcome at them all. Me and Rob regularly attend a meeting that is actually an audio meeting, where only about a quarter of the people put the camera on. We voted to allow the optional use of cameras, and so only probably less than a quarter of people have their cameras on. So never feel you can't come to a Zoom meeting because you don't want to put your camera on. And also, most people don't even share. So don't feel if you come along, anyone's going to require you to share or put your camera on. That is not the case. You can simply come along and listen in.
Yeah,
so you've been made very welcome at meetings. So if you're using drugs and you want to get clean, my suggestions are simple. Come along to a meeting each day. Try and connect with the people there. Get yourself a sponsor, get some literature, and get into the solution. There is a solution for active addiction. Now, I want to point out that this book we've got on the screen, Alcoholics Anonymous, can be read or listened to completely free 24/7 at aa.org. aa.org. So, what kind of things do we have to do on a daily basis, Rob, to stay clean and have a successful recovery?
Well, pretty simple stuff, really. I mean, on Awakening, I read, and I ask my sponsees to do this as well. I read page 86 on Awakening. I would then either do a prayer or a meditation, whichever one first, doesn't make any difference really. But you need to get a prayer in, and basically you're asking your higher power as you pick him or her, and you're asking them to basically take your thinking over, your will and your thinking, and basically listen to what your higher power is suggesting to do. I would ring my sponsor, and I still do that today. I always call my sponsor, just for a 5-minute catch up, just to make sure that I'm happy. I've got stuff to do during the day, just a quick catch up and a checkup. I write a gratitude list, which I send by WhatsApp to my sponsor. And most people do it on WhatsApp, I think, these days. A gratitude list is 10 things that you're grateful for, and 5 things that you're grateful you're not anymore. So, something I'd be grateful for would be, my wife and my family around me, the house, the roof above my head, my mobile phone for getting on meetings, and talking to fellows. And then something, that I don't want to do anymore, and I'm happy, I'm grateful that I'm not, would be to be stuck in the malady, that depression, that depressive sort of state you get in, not to be using anymore, so it's very, very simple. And then during the day, to ring a couple of newcomers. It doesn't have to be newcomers. It could be a couple of fellows within the fellowship, someone that maybe you saw in a meeting and is maybe struggling a little bit, and just you picking that phone up and asking them, how are you doing? Are you all right? Don't make it about you, make it about them. And it's a really beautiful thing. You will come off that call feeling so much better, because you've reached out and you're trying to help someone else, and that's a really amazing thing. And then at night time, again, I do prayer, and then a nightly inventory, which I send through to my sponsor. And that's 10 simple questions of how my day has gone. And I really don't think that is much to ask, or do.
Absolutely.
It's simple. It's simple
Absolutely.
stuff.
And I think the power of the fellowship's the thing, the power of identification, both positive and negative, i.e., we can relate to how we got into addiction, how we stayed in addiction, the things we did to maintain our addictive lifestyles, the behavior, the feelings, and the consequences on others, on ourselves, our minds, our bodies, our pockets, our homes. And so it's the power of identification, the principle of anonymity. It doesn't matter how rich or poor, what colour we are, what backgrounds we've got, what jobs we've got, even what we used. What matters,
doesn't discriminate.
we have a common problem: alcoholism, stroke addiction, and we have a common solution: recovery, sobriety. And we've got to work the fellowship. That's the thing. As part of the program, we have to work the fellowship. And I've really, really enjoyed today's podcast. We've got a few minutes left yet, so I just want to discuss really what I often suggest to folks is, particularly in early recovery, a meeting a day. Try and share at least every other day, however briefly, even if it's just a minute or two. Always introduce yourself at every meeting for newcomers, and learn to listen from the heart, learn to live from spirit instead of from flesh, to live on a spiritual basis. To be spiritually minded is life and peace.
And the thing is,
I'll let you back in just a moment.
Sorry.
And so to be naturally minded is death. The natural mind that kept us locked in addiction. And many of us come in, we get a little bit of recovery, and pride and arrogance comes in, and we very quickly are back in our egotistical working the steps backwards. We get very quickly back into all that stuff on step 5, the exact nature of our wrongs, and we work the steps backwards. And it's a very subtle foe is alcoholism, addiction, the addicted mind. But ultimately, it was my passion, my desire for drugs, Rob. So, in summation, I think I would say that, we come into the fellowship, we learn about the threefold problem, we learn about the threefold solution. Connection with God gives me clear thinking. I have to do certain things to maintain that connection, those vital spiritual experiences on a daily basis, which I have in place, Rob, including this conversation with your good self. And that gives me a vital spiritual experience that increases my connection with God, which gives me clear thinking and a decent lifestyle. And I'm now responsible for my choices and my recovery.
Yes, totally. Yeah. And you're mentioning about the meetings. A lot of people, you'll hear 90 meetings in 90 days. Is suggested that you do. And the thing is, some meetings can be very deep and strong, some can be absolutely not hilarious because it's a serious subject, but good fun. You know, people, we're not a glum lot. You know, you can enjoy recovery. You know, I was miserable in addiction, so I like to have a laugh in recovery. And, you know, there's some meetings that you go on and you come out of it feeling so uplifted from something you've heard, you know, and it's about listening for the similarities, not the differences in people's stories. You know, it might be a female sharing and a male's thinking, oh, well, you know, she's a girl. She's not going to have the same addiction as me. I guarantee you she's got the same story as you, you know, and vice versa. Um, you know, it is a truly amazing thing. You know, I get around the world on Zoom, um, and no matter where I go and who I hear, anywhere in the world, it's the same story. You know, it's uncanny how common the same story is, you know, because we've all done the same things. Some people to a slightly bigger level than others. You know, some people haven't done this and done that, but they've done that and that, you know, but it is basically the same story, isn't it, Paul? It's, you know, across the board.
Well, we used to use, today we don't use. We've found a solution and let's talk about it. And that's largely what we
Yeah,
do in meetings.
yeah,
You know,
yeah,
and furthermore, there's no second best in meetings. Your
yeah,
seat is absolutely as good as anyone else's seat. You know,
yeah, yeah,
and that's the principle of anonymity. You know,
yeah,
we have the steps for the well-being of the individual. We have the traditions for the well-being of the group, and the concepts for the well-being of the greater society of Cocaine Anonymous
yeah,
across the world. You know. And so, you know, probably over 20 million folks have found long-term recovery through the 12 steps
yeah. It's
and
amazing.
continue to do so, you know,
Yeah,
and it's a miraculous process and provision that's available to anyone, you know. So if you're
yeah,
listening to this message and you've got a drug problem, we have a solution for you. You never need to use drugs again. You know, everything we sort in pills, powder, potion, rocks and bottles is available completely free every day through a simple spiritual program. I've got up on the screen, Rob, a meetings list.
yes,
Now,
yeah,
all these are on Zoom.
mm,
I'd strongly suggest getting along to a face-to-face meeting, an in-person meeting. If you was to look at those web addresses at the top, if you're in Britain, if you type in cocaineanonymous.org.uk, you'll get lists of Zoom meetings and in-person meetings.
yeah,
And at the top left and the top right are other CA websites. You'll get online meetings at the top left, and at the top right, ca.org, you get all kind of pamphlets and reading material. So remember, if you're watching this on YouTube, you can pause and rewind this at any point. Now, please come along to a meeting and get the help that you need in meetings. You know, we're here every day. There are meetings on right now. You can see there. Weekend recovery is on at 2 p.m. and 8 p.m. every single day. They're on Zoom. Over on the right, the top right, daily reprieve every night, 9:30 p.m. These are UK times. Reaching out every night, 11 p.m. Tarzana every night at midnight. You know, there's loads of meetings.
mm.
So that pretty much brings us to the end of the podcast. Is there anything you'd like to say in closing, Rob, to our listeners?
Well, obviously, you know, thank you very much for taking your time to you know, to listen to this, and thank you for letting me be of service to share to you. You know, and I really do hope that you've got something from this, a better understanding, perhaps of your disease and what you're suffering with. You know, and if you got something from my share or relate to something, you know, that's great. That's what we do this for, is, you know, to try and relate to, you know, every addict out there. And you know, I wish you the very, very best on your journey, you know, and don't worry don't worry too much. Don't overcomplicate a very simple program. Just, if you want to be happy, you want to be clean, and you want to repair all the damage that you've done to your finances, to your health, to your relationships, with partners and family. This can be achieved through CA. It really can. I'm an absolute testament of that. I'm a blessed man living a blessed life, and I'm very, very happy. So, good luck in your journey, and hope to bump into you maybe in a room sometime.
Rob, it's been beautiful as always listening to you. Thank you so much for coming along today.
My pleasure, Paul.
So that's going to do it for today, folks. Please check out the other podcasts. Please feel free to like and subscribe and comment underneath in the chat by all means. And if indeed you'd like to be on one of these podcasts, reach out to us and we'll organise that too. So thank you so much for tuning in today. Until next time, family. Thank you. Bye-bye.